Culture Crew, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Kulture Kids Storytime. Today we're going to read a story all about Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker was an amazingly brilliant Black scientist. He was able to help with the whole creation of the way that Washington, D.C. is laid out. He made advances with the almanac, and he was very talented with clocks. Little known fact, Big Ben in London, England is actually named after Ben. So, let's dive right into this story and hear more about Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker, the Pioneering Scientist, by Ginger Wadsworth, and illustrations by Craig Orback. Maryland, 1737. Benjamin Banneker was working on his family's tobacco farm. It was hard work for a 6-year-old boy. The sun baked his back and he cut weeds with his hoe. He picked bugs off the big flat leaves. Sometimes he counted the bugs just before he squished them. He counted all the rows of tobacco plants on the farm, and he even counted logs in the cabin he shared with his parents and 3 sisters. Counting made the lonely work a little more fun. At supper, Benjamin listened to stories about his family. Benjamin's grandmother was white. She had been a servant long ago. She worked for many years without pay, and Benjamin's grandfather was Black. In Africa, he had been the son of a king. In America, he had been a slave. Benjamin's father had been a slave too, but no one in Benjamin's family was a slave anymore. Their owners had set them free. Now the Bannekers owned this farm. Benjamin and his family were lucky. Most Black men, women, and children in America were slaves. They did not own anything. After supper, Benjamin sat with Grandmother Molly in her cabin. A fire heated the little house. Candles lit the room. Grandmother Molly opened her Bible. It was the only book she owned. Grandmother was teaching Benjamin to read. Benjamin was a fast learner. Everyone in the family was proud of him. He could read and write, and he was especially good at doing math problems. After Grandmother Molly had taught Benjamin everything she could, she sent him to school. Benjamin had never seen so many books. Most of the students at school had white skin like Grandmother Molly. Everyone sat on benches and listened to the teacher. Sometimes they did math problems, other times they read from books. The teacher even let Benjamin take some books home. Benjamin worked hard and learned a lot. After school he did chores. Then, if he was not too sleepy, he could read his school books. At night, Benjamin lay on his bed and looked out the window. Stars sparkled in the inky black sky. Some were brighter than others, and Benjamin wondered why. Some groups of stars looked like animals or shapes. Sometimes a star seemed to shoot across the sky, and Benjamin wondered why. The Clockmaker. After only 4 years of school, Benjamin had to quit. He was young and strong, and his family needed him to work on the farm full time. But school had made Benjamin hungry to learn. He still kept his eyes on the sky. Sometimes he did hard math problems in the dirt. He used a stick instead of a pencil. At night, Benjamin read books by candlelight. Like most farmers, Benjamin told time by watching the position of the sun, but sometimes the sun was hidden behind trees or clouds. Clocks had been around for a long time, but in the 1750s, only rich people had clocks. Benjamin decided to make his own. When he was 20 years old, Benjamin borrowed a friend's pocket watch and he took it apart and studied each tiny piece. How did the thin hands go around and around, ticking off each minute? He drew a sketch of each piece, then he carved new parts out of wood. He worked on this clock through the winter and summer. After 2 years of carving, Benjamin put together the pieces he had made. His new clock worked. A bell rang once an hour. Benjamin no longer needed to look at the sky to tell time. His clock did the job. Lots of people came to see Benjamin's clock, and they wanted to meet the clockmaker too. When Benjamin was 27 years old, the lonely farm life got even lonelier. His father died. His sisters had married and moved away, and Grandmother Molly had died. Only Benjamin and his mother were left to do all the farm work. There was so much to do. Benjamin had little time for studying. Sometimes he stayed up late and read his math books. Some nights he played his flute or violin and thought about his father. Benjamin began to make friends with other farmers who lived nearby. Many could not read or write. They didn't know much about math either. Benjamin showed his new friends how to weigh their tobacco crop. He helped them figure out how much it was worth, and he also helped them write letters. Benjamin often met farmers at a nearby store. They read newspapers there and talked about the tough questions of farming. Was it time to plow? Was it going to snow again? Was it too early to plant seeds? Maybe someday Benjamin could help his friends with these questions too. The Revolution, 1775. After Benjamin's mother died, he had to run the whole farm by himself. It was harder than ever to find time to study. At least he had friends at the store to keep him company. Important news gave Benjamin and his friends a lot to talk about. Maryland was one of the 13 American colonies ruled by Great Britain. Many Americans thought the colonies should be free to rule themselves. They did not like paying taxes to the British king. In April, British soldiers attacked Americans in Massachusetts. The Americans quickly formed an army. George Washington was their leader. Soldiers marched up and down the roads near Benjamin's farm. A war had begun. After many battles, the colonies won the Revolutionary War in 1783. A new country was born. George Washington became the first president of the United States of America. During the war, Benjamin had kept farming and studying. He had also begun learning a new skill. His friend George Ellicott was a surveyor. George measured land and made plans so new roads could be built. He taught Benjamin about surveying. As usual, Benjamin wanted to learn more and more. George also taught Benjamin about astronomy. Astronomy is the science of studying the sun, moon, stars, and planets. George even had a telescope. Benjamin had always wondered about the stars. Now he learned that the brightest stars were not stars at all. They were distant planets. Benjamin studied George's astronomy books. He learned how to follow the positions of the planets. With this information, Benjamin could tell what the weather would be like next year. His new knowledge also made him a better surveyor. There was so much to learn. Sometimes Benjamin stayed up studying all night. He thought about his farmer friends, and Benjamin thought he could help them with their farming questions. He wanted to write an almanac. In the 1700s, almanacs were important books. New ones came out every year. They gave people information for every day in the calendar year. Almanacs had calendars and dates for planting and harvesting. They also told what the weather would be like the next year. Some almanacs had poems, stories, recipes, and news. Benjamin dipped his pen in the ink bottle over and over again. Piles of paper covered his table. On some, he had written math problems. Some had notes about the sky and weather. When the rooster crowed, Benjamin put away his work. It was time to milk the cows. In 1790, President Washington chose a site to build America's capital city. The area was called the District of Columbia. It was only a few hours away from Benjamin's farm. The president needed surveyors to plan the streets. The top surveyor on the job was Andrew Ellicott, George's cousin. Andrew knew that Benjamin was very good at surveying and astronomy. He asked Benjamin to help him. Helping to survey the capital was a great honor for Benjamin. Very few black people in the 1790s got a chance to do such important work, and it was fun too. Benjamin loved using Andrew's excellent surveying tools. Benjamin worked during the cold, damp winter nights. Sometimes he slept only a few hours in his tent. After 3 months, the work and weather were wearing Benjamin down. He was almost 60 years old. He loved his job, but he was ready to go home. It was time to finish his almanac. The Almanac Writer, 1791. At home, Benjamin wrote and wrote. When he stopped, it was only to sharpen his pen tip with his knife. He checked his math many times. Sometimes he forgot to do the farm chores. It took Benjamin 4 months to write an almanac for the year 1792. His book was packed with information that people needed, especially farmers. Benjamin made 4 copies of his almanac in his best penmanship. He sent 1 copy to Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was the Secretary of State of the United States, and he was also a farmer like Benjamin. Like many white farmers, Jefferson owned slaves. Benjamin sent a long letter to Jefferson along with the almanac. He wrote that slavery was cruel. Black people deserved to be treated the same as white people. He argued that no one should own slaves, not even important American leaders. A few weeks later, Benjamin received a letter from Jefferson. Jefferson thanked Benjamin for his almanac. He said he hoped things would improve in the future for black people, but Jefferson did not free his slaves. A book publisher wanted to print and sell Benjamin's almanac. It was the first published almanac written by a black person. Printed on the cover were the words, "Benjamin Banneker's Almanac." The publisher sold many copies and Benjamin became famous. People wrote him letters thanking him for the helpful information. They came to his cabin to meet him just as they had when he had built the clock. Benjamin stayed busy. He had to write an almanac for 1793. And he wrote one for the next year too. He wrote a new almanac every year for 6 years. When Benjamin was too old to run the farm, he sold his land. He stayed on in the little cabin where he had grown up. He still worked on math problems and read books. He still played his violin or flute as the sun went down. At night, he wrapped himself in a cloak and went outside to look at the stars. Benjamin Banneker never stopped wondering why. Afterward, Benjamin Banneker died in 1806 at the age of 75. The day he was buried, his log cabin burned to the ground. Almost everything Benjamin owned was lost, including his wooden clock and his books. His sister saved Grandmother Molly's Bible. Benjamin and his family lived in freedom during a time when most black people in the American colonies were slaves. Many white people believed that black people were stupid and were only fit to be slaves. Some whites even tried to capture free black people and force them into slavery. Because Benjamin did not have any papers saying he was legally free, he had to worry about being made a slave. Most black people never got a chance to prove that they were equal, but Benjamin did. People noticed what he accomplished. His almanacs and his surveying work helped prove that a person's abilities are not connected to skin color. Benjamin Banneker is remembered as a brilliant thinker and our country's first black man of science. Important dates. 1731, Benjamin Banneker is born on November 9th in the British colony of Maryland. 1750s, he builds a wooden clock using the pieces of a pocket watch as a model. In 1759, his father dies. About 1775, his mother dies. The exact date of her death is unknown. In 1783, the United States wins its freedom when the Revolutionary War ends. In 1789, George Washington becomes the first president of the United States. In 1791, Benjamin helped survey the District of Columbia, where America's capital city will be. In 1792, the first almanac is published. He sends one copy to Thomas Jefferson and makes argument against slavery. In 1797, the last almanac is published. And in 1806, he dies at his cabin in Maryland. This book only begins to scratch the surface of the great mind that Benjamin Banneker had. This man was so brilliant. There's so many stories of the work that he did with clocks and, the amazing way his mind worked in order to get things to work the way that he wanted it to. Up until that time, so many of our people were considered, stupid, or we didn't know anything. But this man was able to prove that no matter what anyone thought about him because of his skin color, his brilliance outshined whatever they could possibly think of. So learn some more about Benjamin Banneker. He's a great, great inventor, a great mind, a great scientist, a great role model to look after, and definitely see what other great facts you can find about this wonderful man. Hope you tune in next time for another edition of Kulture Kids Storytime. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Thanks so much.